Thank you so much, Julian. Pleasure being here. Changing subject, more or less uranium and more biology and biotech. I'm happy to present here at NurExone Biologic. I'm pioneering biopharmaceutical company that dealing with a spinal cord injury, the holy grail of science, and how we bring hope to patients with acute spinal cord injury to have a functional recovery. So just as a beginning, as a disclaimer, as we publicly trade at the Toronto Stock Exchange Venture, here's our disclaimer. And let's start with this overview on the company. The company is, as I said, publicly traded in Toronto. We have also available trade in Germany, Frankfurt, and other stock exchange. And we are developing and commercializing exosome-based therapy. I'm sure I will explain you what is exosomes. Don't just the beginning, and then we take the product that we have into a platform that can address $5.2 billion market. How does it go? We are going first of all for the acute spinal cord injury as indications, as we would like to have a small cohort of patients in the first one and first two, which is the clinical phase, and then take this further, the platform and the product to other indications. I'm leading the company since April 2021. With me, I have the Dr. Noah Avni that joined the company quite recently as the R&D director, and we have well-renowned professors, part of the scientific advisory boards, with Professor Shulamit Levenberg. She's well-known in Israel and also in the East Coast as a specialist in regeneration of neurons and tissue engineering. Professor Nachshon Knoller was involved in 3 clinical stage companies in a spinal cord injury. The mission is simple. We want to recover the nerves in the nervous system, central system, to have by regeneration and rewiring the neurons. And I will show you some amazing results today that can, I believe, convince you that what we do is actually real. Some recent development, we have completed the pre-IND part of going to a clinical stage. The next step is have a IND submission and start the clinical phase as a company. We got a written response from the FDA. We know what we need to do to submit the IND files, and we are in the position to start the clinical trials, hopefully by the second half of 2025. We work together with collaborators from Canada, a company called Intelligex, and we receive a Eureka grant for 2 years. The first year was secured for 350,000 Canadian dollars, and the total budget of only NurExone is 1 million euros. Last significant event is received by October 2023. We received an orphan drug designation by the FDA, and which means a lot of benefits during the clinical phase and later. For example, as an orphan drug designation company, we are receiving automatically, when we get into the commercial phase, 7 years exclusivity regardless of the patents. Here are some information about spinal cord injury. To make it short, it's a very hard and complex issue to solve. There were several attempts. There are a lot of burden on the society that impact the families and the governments to make sure that patients that suffer from spinal cord injury will live as long as possible. Of course, after a spinal cord injury, people that injured are likely to die 5 times earlier than a normal person without any injury. Of course, we have some kind of hope with other treatment at these points with other company, but so far, no company reached a full approved FDA to treat spinal cord injury. Here is just in numbers, what is the burden on and the cost for the lifetime depend on the type of injury. As going up in the spinal cord, the highest cost you have. C1, C4 are the most expensive patients for the insurance, the insurance company and the governments. So our mission is to develop a minimal invasive, and I will touch it in a second. What does it mean, minimal invasive? A biological platform for treatment spinal cord injury. And when we treat spinal cord injury, for us, it's like the tip of the iceberg, and we show regeneration of neurons, we can treat other CNS, central nervous system, traumatic injuries, like TBI, traumatic brain injury. So the platform is divided to two main business pillars. One is, as a portfolio company, we have products, and the most advanced one is the XOP10. That is an exosome loaded with a special siRNA against the P10 protein. This is going ahead with acute spinal cord injury, and as a drug under orphan drug designation, I have a market around $2.9 billion in 2027. Besides that, to build this complex molecule, we design and establish a platform technology that covers three aspects of the molecule. How you produce those exosomes, those small vesicles that are going into the body and deliver the drug, the siRNA that we use, and how we load it together. Those are the results that we got, and what is amazing here is to see the regeneration in a tissue level. If you see figure number A, you see untreated animals after a full transection, completely cut of the spinal cord injury, and you can see that the nerves under the lesion is completely gone, almost gone. When we have an untouched, everything is intact, and you can see how the tissue should look. When we treat it, we can see regeneration with the XOP10 that brings it to the same level, to the same width of the spinal cord, also after the injury. This was done several times in rats, and we are confident that this solution can be translated into humans with, of course, small adaptations. The fact that we are using intranasal administration through the nose is a challenging aspect, since the nose of the rats is not the nose of the human. But we know that those exosomes can penetrate the blood-brain barrier and can penetrate the brain like that. So this is what I mean, non-invasive or minimal invasive. It's no injection, it's not local treatment of the patients, is through the nose. So what are exosomes? Exosomes are small and tiny vesicles around 150 nanometers. Nanometers is -9 of a meter, a very tiny vesicles that built from bilayer, like a cell, but it's not a living creature. There is no DNA inside that allow that to proliferate. This is a vesicles that secrete from other cells. In our case, we use a type of stem cells, bone marrow mesenchymal stem cells, to secrete our exosomes. We combine it together with a tiny sequence of siRNA, short interferon RNA, in order to reduce the expression of the protein that we target. In our case, as I said, we target a special protein called P10, which is known in science and in the literature that when you reduce his concentration in the cells, it can cause a cell regeneration, and also neuron growth. Together, we call it exotherapy because those exosomes that produce in 3D or even in 2D can get to different indications that we aim. And the mechanism of it is that the exosomes enter intranasally to the brain and going and homing to inflammation as part of his nature. Those are the results that the company can start with. We have the spinal cord injury, as we saw. It's another version here that you can see in the lesion. When we treat it, we have cells in the gap. Where we cut, there are cells back and compared to the control. And then, okay, you don't believe me that it's coming to the place, the exosomes. The next feature, the next picture will show you that when we covering the exosome or we signaling it with gold nanoparticle, GNP, we can see accumulation of those exosomes in the area of the lesion, okay? Compared to the healthy one, when you don't have any injury and you don't have any inflammation, you don't see any accumulation in the spinal cord injury. This is the same result that we got 3 years ago, even before 2019. The same MRI results that I showed you before recently with our final product, we got in 2019. And this means that we can repeat the results, and this is the most important things in science. We can see it only that when we combine the exopitin, the exosomes and the PTEN siRNA, we can see functional recovery after 56 days. The exosomes themselves, which is interesting to mention, have some kind of therapeutic effect, but this is not enough after 56 days to show regeneration, to show a functional recovery in those rats. So why we are choosing exosome to deliver intranasally? Easy to speak is just working. It's working actually better than in the other way of administration, and we try to keep it as simple as possible. The exosomes themselves can cross the BBB. There are different scientific publications about that, and we use this for our advantages. If we compare competitors and we are going to different approach, like using exosome with our exopitin or stem cells transfecting or giving cells in a part of the injury to do it at autology, like personal medicine, or allogeneic, which is a non-personal medicine, you can, or compared to electrical stimulation, which is completely medical device. In the case of using and showing in a full transaction, we are the only one that ticks all the box. We are very safe immune-wise. The toxicity profile of the exosomes are very, very good. So that means that the product that will be produced will be allogeneic. It's off-the-shelf product. We don't need to personalize it to different person, and that makes operation-wise very, very appealing to a company, because one batch can serve several patients. And of course, again, it's non-invasive. Those are some examples how the market of the exosome developed during the years. In the 2020, 2018, several big deals had made with some companies in the US and the UK. Evox signed 2 deals with a big pharma when Evox that time was the company was in a preclinical stage, and you see the numbers. This is the new way of medicine, and this is the ultimate drug delivery system. And I believe that more and more big pharmaceutical companies are going to explore this routes of using exosomes for different indications. as a biotechnological company, we establish our knowledge on patents, and this is the most important thing, since having revenues is not just in 1 or 2 years from now. We need to build our value on real IPs, and for that we have already one patent that is already granted in the US, and we submitted to other countries. This is the intranasal exopitan as a drug. This is the umbrella IP we have. We have 2 PCTs on the production and composition of matter on our exosomes, especially to produce it in 3D. And we just published yesterday evening a press release regarding that. And then we have 3 provisions belong 100% to the company, dealing with the loading technique, how we load it post-production, so meaning there is no gene modification of cells. It's a very simple technique that allow us to load different molecules, and also the sequence that we use as siRNA. So you can see that we actually cover all aspects of our products. And last point is we also got the orphan drug designation, and as I said, so that's another level of protection with a 7 years exclusivity. This is the roadmap for the next year or two. We would like to get the IND done by 2025 and get the clinical stage as a clinical stage company next year. It's a tough challenge, but we know how to solve it. We know what needs to be done, especially based on the pre-IND information. And it's a technical issue that we need to solve, but it's manageable. This is the company. In general, we are 16 people. Some of them are in the scientific advisory board. As you can see here, the majority of the employees are in the R&D department. We have a head of CMC quality and regulation as part of the interaction with the FDA and also the European EMA, the European agency. We have a finance department and the business development department. This is our scientific advisory board. I will not go in too much details, but you can see that all are well-known professors. Professor Theodore Dagi just joined us from the East Coast, US, will help us to bring our technology into the North America. We have a mix between neurosurgery, ophthalmologies, and rehabilitation. Those are the aspects that we explore. We know that it's very important to deal, when we deal with spinal cord injury, to include also the rehabilitation part. And we have Professor Shulamit Levenberg and Professor Danny Offen, who are the inventors of this exopitan. That's our, starting point. Directors, I'm serving as a director together with Yoram and Gadi Riesenfeld from Israel, and we have 2 Canadian. One maybe short story about James. James Richardson was actually the CEO of the shell company InnerSpark that we made the RTO in 2022, and he believed in the company. He came completely from the mining sector, and he got in love with this biology and biotech with NurExone. So we really happy to have him on board. This is some information as a public trade company, and that's it. We can open this session for questions. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for the great presentation, Lior. That was the first time we are covering Exone here at the IIF. So even before we start back opening the floor for questions, if you can take a little more time explaining us, maybe once again, so we can wrap our head around it, exactly why are the Exone able to deliver what they're delivering? What is specific about them? Just translate it one more time for us, please.
Sure. So let's start with that every person has a lot of exosomes in his body, and his blood is flowing around, okay? The nature of these exosomes is simple: to communicate between cell and cell, okay? A cell that is coming from a good tissue sends a message through those tiny vesicles to a tissue that injured, want to recover it, okay? That's the idea behind it. Those exosomes are not empty. They are having a huge amount of cargo, small one, but a very important cargo, which is protein, DNA, RNA, that will help to recover the damaged tissues, okay? If in the past, companies, especially pharmaceutical company, try to have a drug delivery system artificially, let's say liposomes or other, with the COVID, we know now LNP, lipid nanoparticles. This is for the vaccines. These are tiny vesicles based on bilayers, which is synthetically produced. You don't need to do it because the body actually produces its own drug delivery system, and we use it for our advantage.
Okay. And in this case, so basically the IP that you do possess and everything is not about the exon, it's about what you put inside the exon. Is that right?
We have three aspects of our patents. First of all, how you create exosomes in a high yield, and that those exosomes will be more potent. Okay, so we have a lot of knowledge from which cell we start, how we process the cells, and when we need to harvest the exosomes. Okay, and how we do it in the most efficient way. Okay, make sure that the exosomes are potent specifically to our neurons, for example. We want to make sure that those exosomes will go to neurons and not to other cells that are irrelevant for this process of regeneration of neurons. Okay, that's first things. Second is how to load them. We don't manipulate the cells that secrete those exosomes. We are adding our siRNA compound post-production. We produce the exosomes and then add the siRNA on top. And the third one is what we add to those exosomes. We are specialized in siRNA, and those siRNAs are a tiny sequence of, it's like DNA, but RNA based. And those are modified and stabilized to make sure that when they are reaching your cells in the injured tissue, they will work, okay? They will be stable and not, dissolved. Okay. Those are the aspects of our IPs.
And in this aspect of the IP, are the first two steps actually something that could be commercialized?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's not defined, and for us, it's not defined for spinal cord injury. That's when I try to explain to the crowd here we start with a product. We actually have much more than that. And because we are really trust our platform, we use our platform for our product.
Okay, perfect. No, and that's quite clear. All right, thank you for all of those distinctions. So, obviously, we do have questions from the audience. If you do have more, you can still post it. The use of proceeds. So you just raised about $2 million, I think, just lately.
Canadian.
Canadian, exactly. You did just get a grant of about 350,000 and so on. What is the burn rate of a company like yours? And how long that 2 million is going to last you for?
Okay, so as we have several businesses, okay, the main one is making sure that we are getting into the clinic as soon as possible. The first proceed that we will do is the XOP10. In parallel, we are working on the business part of this. Why we have also business development part to explore potential of collaboration or commercialization, licensing as part of our IP. And there is a lot of things to do here because, as I said, it's for different other indications, not necessarily spinal cord injury. A company like that is around $200,000 to $250,000 to run a month, so you can calculate how much we can have, but we can always expand. That's because it's not only exopitan. So we definitely we have also warrants as you saw, and you can see now. I believe that other could see suddenly the jump in the shares, and it's not necessarily like a surprise because the majority of the shares actually coming from Germany. People start to understand what we have. Only in December, our patents were published for the first time. So people after Christmas coming back to work understood what we have here and understood the potential. So a lot of buyers from Germany, and this is what drives the shares up, and it's based on high increased liquidity and increased trade on the shares.
Absolutely. Well, for sure, the jump in share is something very, very impressive for about, I don't know, about 25, 30 cents all the way to almost $1 Canadian. This obviously will be able to trigger you some warrants, bring some more cash flow into the company,
Exactly.
so on. And
So
this is
it's not necessarily another round of funding, but if you take
it's organic growth.
exactly.
It's really not something bad at all. Mark is asking, is administering through the nasal canal targeted enough? Each person has different nasal construction, and it seems that it would be difficult to dose properly on a case-by-case basis as opposed to other methods. So I don't know, Mark, if you're referring to my nose, because my doctor is telling me that my nose is a bit to the left and should be corrected inside. But I'll let Lior answer that maybe on a more scientific-based answer.
So when we are targeting the nose, we are actually going very, very deep into the nose. This is direction the physicians of the bulb behind the nose. So in this case, it depends on the dossier of the dose that we will give to the patients, but it doesn't need to be a challenge here. And it's not the first one that can deliver intranasally. There are even vaccines that can deliver intranasally, and the variation between person to person is in this case is less relevant.
Okay, perfect. That's quite clear. Kevin is asking on his site, where do you think the stock should be? This is a question I have to ask it because I usually get 5 to 10 questions from the audience for every single company. They're all asking where it should be, where do you see the stock, and so on. I think that with a raise that you just had, this is an even more intriguing answer that you're going to give us today.
I usually, when I answer those questions, I try to find a reference, and I think the reference here is another Canadian company. Actually, the majority of their shares coming from the US. We are still not in the US. We are not traded on the OTC, only in Canada and Germany. And this I'm referring to a company called NurExone. NurExone is doing spinal cord injury, and they're doing completely different technology. They're using peptides and it's a completely different technology. But in this case, we like innovation and we like to have several solutions. I hope for them that they will succeed. These shares, let's say, if they just start to recruit patients, so they are in beginning of clinical phase. And this shares is more than $3 Canadian. So when you invest in biotech, it's a very, very long time frame, but the jump are very significant. So companies companies in a clinical phase is hundreds millions of dollars.
Absolutely. I think the comparable are really holding the road without a doubt. Lior, maybe one last quick answer from you is the therapy meant to heal chronic complete spinal cord injuries as well?
So when we are dealing with chronic is another aspect, another subpopulation in a spinal cord injury. In this case, a patient, let's say with 15 years after the injury, he has already scar. There is a completely different way that you need to treat those patients, and it's much more challenging. For this reason, we felt not enough secure that we can go give this our solution to chronic patients like that as XOP10. And this is the reason behind the collaboration that we have with Intelligex, the Canadian company that deals with chronic patients. The idea, what we try to do is to have actually improve therapy based on their technology and our exosome to maybe see a better result for the chronic patients.
Well, that's all the time we had. Thank you very much for answering all the questions. Obviously, we'll be very much following the rest of your story. We know that around the world, there's a lot of conflicts, a lot of injuries that are touching what you're researching on. And so we wish you the best of luck into finding solutions for everyone around. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.